Oh my
Dear
God.
I think I only bought like 60 for the bigger signs, you know.
Hey, it's a lot cheaper than running countywide, isn't it?
Yeah. But
See?
the pay is a lot. The pay, you know, judge pay versus this.
Hey, but the good news is,
Wait a minute, as a judge, I got more than that.
oh,
You know, you got your cases done, you're like, I just like come in a little late or go home a little early, you know,
it's not
whatever.
like anybody's going to tell you what to do, right?
Well, of course now, you know, they got the thing half closed, there's no in-person stuff. I'd be surprised how many judges are even there. I bet there's hardly any.
Yeah, we got, this is the first meeting we've had both sides, so this'll, I'm gonna,
I saw Rebecca won her race, so that was close.
oh, yeah, sure. I think they all know that. It's just a matter of, they, well, yeah, I taught it for a long time. But I think, you know how it is, when you run out of places to go, you start reaching, you know, and that's what happens. So,
How's things? Very good.
hello, John, how are you? Yeah, right at 7. We should be rolling. Okay.
No, I was on vacation, so I threw it out for a little while. So my wife hates it, so I'm on borrowed time.
Well, we don't have to kiss you, so we can like.
Well, where'd you go on vacation? Destin, Florida.
That's a great
Yeah.
beach, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's really nice. Oh my gosh. And if you think St. Charles County is Republican, oh my Lord. Down in Miramar Beach, they've got signs out in front of the buildings that say Trump merchandise here and like flags flying in cars and like wow. It was people on the beach with big Trump beach blankets.
I have a niece in Destin, and I have family in Fort Myers.
Oh yeah.
So lately we've been going to Sanibel.
It's really pretty. Yeah.
Hardly anybody on the beach.
It's just easier to drive to Destin.
Yeah, but see, there's a nonstop flight to Fort
There is.
Myers.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a nonstop flight to Tampa as well. So
That's a long drive to Destin. Yeah, it's like a 2-hour flight to Fort Myers and then just right across the causeway.
nice. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully tonight goes well. You know, it rained a little, but we had sunshine at least at some point every day. So we did absolutely nothing. We took Megan and her friend, and they ran around and did stuff together. Megan turned 18.
I think we're ready.
Change things up.
Never know.
Yeah, they had an emergency meeting in St. Charles City Hospital.
Yes. Okay.
Thursday, 11, because now they have to teach virtual
All right.
and in class at the same time, one teacher. It's crazy.
Excuse me, folks. Can I have your attention? We are going to begin the meeting, the St. Charles County Council meeting of August the 10th. We will start the meeting with an invocation led by Pastor Bill Sontag of Harvester Christian Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Joe Brazel. Please stand.
Dear Heavenly Father, first and foremost, I thank you for allowing all of us to be present here today. I thank you for the love that you give each and every one of us, whether they're in this room, whether they are in this city, whether they are in this county, or whether they're around the world, Father. You openly love us all, and we thank you for that. Father, I ask for a special blessing upon this council. I pray for a wisdom upon them as they make decisions that affect so many lives, Father. I pray that you would please just bless them. Let them know that you love them, especially during the difficult times, Father. Father, and I really want to just ask for healing for our community. I want to ask for a healing of our community so that we can all get along, so that we can all just give up ourselves in order to do what's best for the entire community, Father. So help us all to do that in our own special way, but help us do it in a way that would glorify you, Father. I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank you that we love you, Father, but most of all, I thank you that the way you love us and that you love us throughout, no matter what the situation is, Father. So we're just grateful for that, and I ask for a blessing on these people in this room that can hear my voice today. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Cronin.
Here.
Councilman Brazel. Councilman Elam.
Here.
Councilman Hollander.
Here.
Councilman Hammond.
Here.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Here.
Councilman White.
Here.
Okay. All right, we will begin tonight with public comment. I just want to remind folks that most of you have filled out a card. We will allow 3 speakers for and 3 speakers against on various issues. One thing I'd like to remind everyone of is that, people are very passionate about, their point of view on various issues. And what I'm asking is to everyone respect people's opinion, listen closely, do not interrupt, and allow people to have their voice. And that's what we're here for this evening. So, Claire?
Tracy Martinez.
Good evening. I am Tracy Martinez, a lifelong St. Charles resident and a teacher starting my 27th year in a few short weeks. Tonight, I'm asking you for leadership and guidance. At the last meeting, the council made it very clear that you have no jurisdiction over school districts. At the Board of Education meeting Francis Howell called last week, one of the board members asked if Mr. Ailman was going to be making a recommendation for schools. Our superintendent said that a recommendation would not be forthcoming. The same board member asked if Dr. Hoven to ask you for one. As our elected officials, school leaders are looking to you for guidance. Students have the choice to attend virtually. Teachers do not. I have the same number of students on my caseload. Class sizes are not changing. One of my classes is virtual. The other 6 are in person. How do I spread out 29 desks in a 28 by 28 foot classroom? Recommendations from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education talk about masks, hand washing, cleaning, and social distancing, but the statements are all followed by, if feasible. I'm here to tell you it isn't feasible. The statistics show that children haven't been infected with COVID at the same rate as adults. Could it be that we protected the children by closing schools? When you look at the day camps and daycare, children are in very small groups with the same people all day. That will not be the case in middle and high school. My 29 first-hour students will go to their next 6 classes, each one with a new group of students. During that 3-minute passing period, I will need to disinfect Chromebooks, wipe down desks with a product that's supposed to sit for 10 minutes before you wipe it off, make sure not too many kids are in the bathroom, and monitor at least 200 8th grade students in the hallway. It's an impossible task. Some have argued essential workers like cashiers have been safely at work this whole time. And this is true, and they are my heroes. We were told that the risk increases with extended contact. Contact tracing and notifications will only be done for people within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. I don't remember a time that I was paying for something in a store that took longer than 15 minutes. I love teaching. I desperately want to go back to school like normal. I want to pick out my first day outfit and go to bed knowing that I will have the same back to school nightmare I have every year when the students take over the class. This year's not normal. The nightmares have already begun, and they're about one of my students or family members being very sick. You have the power to choose to lead safely this community and give a recommendation regarding the start of school. I will choose what I can control, and even though it'll be a harder road, I will educate and care for my students to the very best of my ability like I have for 26 years. I need your support. Teachers and students will get COVID-19. There will not be enough substitutes to cover all the classes. So if you have 60 hours of college credit, I encourage you to apply to be a substitute because we will need the backup and the in-person students will need a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Marcia Bear. Marcia Bear.
Good evening, members of the council and County Executive Elman. My name is Marcia Bear. I've been a county resident my entire life. I've worked in special education for 21 years. I am currently a substitute teacher at the Washington Early Learning Center, children aged 2 to 5.
Miss Bear, can you help me tie my shoes?
Yes, and Washington will be going, the Early Learning Center is going back to school full-time with half the students. That's as far as I know at this point, and I plan to go back as a substitute. I am asking that the county does not make a recommendation. I would like that left to the individual school districts. They are the closest to the parents, the closest to the students. They should be the ones to make the decisions. Further, I would like to thank the county that at this time you have not made any county-wide mask mandates. I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of the mask. I've read copious amounts of research indicating cloth masks do very little to nothing to stop aerosolized particles of virus. I had asked that the council and our county executive would continue to stand by that recommendation, no county-wide mandates for masks. Thank you all so much for all that you do.
Anita Kushner.
Given the fact that most Lincoln County schools are scheduled to begin their school year in just a few weeks, it is unlikely that the spread of the virus will be adequately controlled without the risk of significant outbreaks. Therefore, the formal recommendation of the Lincoln County Health Department is that all schools start the school year in a virtual environment as possible to protect the health of students, staff, and families. According to Sam Page, the St. Louis County Health Department recommended schools should rely on remote learning this fall as the numbers continue to climb. What is the St. Charles County Health Department's guidance? Steve, would you like to meet with the teachers union presidents? We have asked to meet with you. We are citizens of St. Charles County. What is the problem? A couple other questions. How many contact tracers do we have? How did we use the CARES money? Why don't we have drive-up testing sites? Do you think that when we put 60,000 people back to work and school in this county in the next few weeks, things will go well? Should we have easy access to quick testing so that we don't continue to spread the virus? Lots of questions that need to be answered, and they aren't. I know people that have tested positive, and the people in this county have not been contact traced. That was 40 people at a training session in a school. Now, the people that were there have not been told. The only reason they know is because the person that was sick called them. What are we going to do when we don't even have, that's not even open on the weekends, and people are going to go to school and they're going to be sick and they're going to get someone else sick? Thank you.
Mary Ann Boatwright.
St. Charles County is a great place to live, work, raise a family, own a business. Many of our cities rank among the top in the nation for affordable homes, good schools, low crime, low taxes. Communities like ours don't get there by promoting bad policy. We can look at St. Louis, Chicago, Portland, Baltimore, Minneapolis, and Detroit for policies we want to avoid. They have it all: poor education, poverty, crime, anarchy, corruption, power-hungry socialist politicians, some of whom are funded by George Soros, rules over the people like subjects as they trample on their constitutional rights. Elite politicians don't follow edicts. They demand of people who pay their salaries. Like Chicago mayor threatened arrest, jail, and fines for violations, but she was caught getting her hair cut at a salon during the lockdown. The DC mayor mandated anyone caught in large gathering would be quarantined for 14 days. She exempted the DC politicians who attended a large funeral without social distancing. Dr. Fauci said we didn't need masks, then we did. When he threw the ball out at the ball game, he wasn't wearing his mask or social distancing. I wonder if Dr. Fauci is on hydroxychloroquine as a preventive measure, or if maybe COVID is not as dangerous and widespread as being touted. The numbers have been greatly misrepresented. He knew years ago of the drug's effectiveness. Countries using hydroxychloroquine had much lower death rates. Many countries sell this over the counter. It's been safe for decades. Why would some governors refuse to allow patients access to this drug? I wonder if that is why President Trump signed his executive order giving very ill patients the right to try off-label drugs. Many deaths were suffered by elderly in nursing homes in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California. Why did New York governor force elderly into nursing homes when the nursing homes were not COVID prepared and against CDC guidance? Why did Governor Cuomo say you can't ask them if they have COVID before they are admitted to the nursing home? Why were these patients not given hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and a Z-Pak immediately? Why were patients not sent to the Javits Center and Comfort Ship in New York and Mercy Ship in California? Both ships were retooled for COVID patients, but remained almost empty. They have been quarantined. They could have been quarantined 14 days and sent to the nursing home after testing negative. In 1959, Nikita Khrushchev said, "Your children's children will live under communism. You Americans are so gullible. You won't accept communism outright, but we will keep feeding you small doses of socialism until you finally wake up and find you already have communism. We will not have to fight you. We will weaken your economy until you fall like overripe fruit into our hands. Democracy ceases to exist when you take from those willing to work and give to those who won't." There's 8 levels of control in the socialist recipe: healthcare, poverty, debt, gun control, welfare, education. You take control of what people read, listen to, and take control of children and what they learn in school. You remove religion, you remove God, and then you create class warfare. Our country is being taken down from within. Our history is being destroyed. Police are defunded and attacked. We're being divided as a nation by race, religion, political affiliation, gender, left, right, masked, unmasked.
Thank you, ma'am.
Take a deep breath. One more thing. We need to pray for wisdom and safety for our country, our military, the police, local, state, our political.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. I want to thank you for supporting the St. Charles County residents and for allowing us our freedoms. Appreciate that.
Next on the agenda, ma'am.
Christine Nanny.
Good evening. My name is Christine Nanny. I have been an educator in Fort Zumwalt School District for 17 years, and I'm here tonight to serve as the membership representative of the Fort Zumwalt Education Association. I am here to share concerns of the Fort Zumwalt staff and ask the council to do 2 things. First, we ask that you institute a countywide mask ordinance, imploring individual businesses and owners and school officials to ask that their patrons comply with a non-existent mandate is backwards. It is incumbent on this council to require masks across the county. Second, our school leadership is looking to this council and the county health department to provide expert guidance for their decision-making. That guidance has been inadequate. There are key data points that are missing. How many residents under the age of 18 have been diagnosed in the past week alone, or the past 2 weeks? How many under the age of 18 have died? How many have been diagnosed within each individual district's boundaries? What is the recommended positivity rate for us to move from an in-person, face-to-face learning environment to a hybrid or a virtual instruction model? That information is crucial and is not readily available. Our students and our community and our staff are not guinea pigs. We are essential members of the community, but sick teachers cannot teach sick students. Little is being done to truly mitigate the risks for the school community in this county. Difficult decisions and recommendations must be made at the leadership level. Anything short of a mask requirement and specific recommendations for our school leadership is a remiss. Please stand for the children of this community and the teachers and those who care for them. Thank you.
Brenda Webb.
Mr. Chairman, could we tell the people in the back of the house that this is the video she requested to be played on for her within her time frame?
Yes, but I think they got the word back there.
Got a video.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a question from a
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
colleague. Michelle Gallardo from ABC7 wants to know, earlier this week, the state reported the death of a teenager in Cook County. Are you familiar with this case? If so, is this the state's first teenage death? And can you tell us if the teenager in question had underlying conditions?
I don't have that information at my disposal at this time. I know we have had people of all age groups die. I just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that technically, even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, and County Executive Elman. Thank you very much for listening to us again and letting us voice our opinion. Thank you for standing for freedom and liberty in St. Charles and standing for our rights, our constitutional rights. We really do appreciate it. We really do appreciate it. Because we are not anti-mask. As I said before, last time I was here, we are in favor of everybody having a choice. It's freedom to choose, right? It's our body, our choice. And, we want the right to choose. And as you can see from that video right there, which is our neighboring state, they're counting anything if the person had a diagnosis, or even if they had symptoms, they were counted as a COVID death. I've talked to people in the county who had friends who went and got in line for a test, found out it was going to be 3 hours, they couldn't wait, they left, and got called 2 days later that, oh, you're positive. And somebody tried to get that taken off their record, and you have to go get tested again to take it off. So, the numbers we don't trust the numbers. And to base a mandate that, encroaches on everybody's lives, we just think is wrong. And I agree with Mr. Elman when he was on Fox 2 yesterday, or talking with them or whatever, that, a mandate is really unenforceable, and we appreciate that, and sending out police officers when there's riots going on, or, who knows what, to give a citation to somebody that doesn't have a mask. That just doesn't make sense. So, again, we are here, we're supporting you. We want to thank you for standing for liberty. We just so appreciate it very much, and we're just in favor of you. So thank you.
I have 2 more speaker cards for non-agenda topics, one concerning masks and one concerning parking in an Orchard Farm School District.
Okay, let's give one, both those.
Okay. Gary Feller.
Members of the council, county executive, fellow citizens, thank you for all you're doing to make the county a better place. I'm Gary Feller, founder and co-chair of the Committee to Restore America 912. I've been studying issues in our government and what's going on in our society for about 15 years. I've put about 200, 300 hours into studying what's going on in the coronavirus. I should summarize it, a little booklet here. So, what we're finding is that we're being lied to. The number of deaths, according to the report from the Children's Defense Network, is that CDC changed their guidelines on reporting deaths, people dying from cancer, heart disease, diabetes, accidents, drug overdose, and they thought they had coronavirus. They're listed as a coronavirus death. According to this report, the number of deaths could be inflated by as much as 90%. We don't know how many people were actually infected because the CDC and the FDA have admitted that they've never evaluated the test kits to determine if they're accurate or not. I'm aware of tests that they took samples from a goat, a pheasant, and a papaya, a piece of fruit, labeled them with people's names, sent them to the lab, and the lab said all three of these people were positive for coronavirus. So I think it's clear. We need to stay away from our goats. We could be contaminated. Number of people were hospitalized, people going in for elective surgery, other problems, injuries, and they're tested for coronavirus, and they test positive, but they don't have the symptoms. They're listed as being infected by the coronavirus, that they're hospitalized because of the coronavirus. So our numbers are way inflated of what we believe are actually true. Wearing a mask. One doctor said wearing a mask is like putting up a chain link fence to stop somebody from throwing sand at you. When we wear a mask, we're rebreathing the toxins of the bacteria, the viruses that our lungs are trying to exhale, and we're rebreathing that, making us more vulnerable to other infections. Social distancing does not protect us. Taking vitamins and getting exercise, eating good quality food is very important. But our medical advisors are not telling us that. You wonder why not? 2.2 million deaths were predicted by this Professor Neil Ferguson in England. He's had a history of wildly inaccurate predictions. Regarding the swine flu, the bird flu, and mad cow disease, he predicted a total of 200,115,000 people would die. The actual number was 916. And yet his prediction was relied on by our leaders to justify lockdowns and have devastated our people's lives and our economy. So,
Thank you, sir.
So, and okay. Thank you.
Kenny Bierman.
After listening to all that, I just had a simple, well, it's not simple to me, but to the county. And I talked to County Representative Snyder, and I talked to Executive Elman, and I talked to Joe. But we had instituted a new program up at Archer Farm School District where the kids will have to walk a new route. And this new route has a path through the back of this elementary school, Discovery. And they're constantly parking where this path comes out. So if the county could put up a no parking sign, I know these are kind of small things after listening to all, but if you could put up a nope, I would just worry about the kids walking home because it's an area where there's no sidewalks and it's in the county. The street is Clarence, and it would be in the 701 area of Clarence. The house is 701. It borders. We bought the property far for the walking trail, and over on Mango and Apricot. If you could put, because those kids from the Stable Ridge and those other subdivisions will be walking, since we redid the mileage thing, will be walking to this elementary school. And that's a very busy street. And I know for a fact, because I got hit in my four-wheel drive and they totaled it out coming across that intersection. So if you could put some kind of a caution, children are in that area, or even a stripe across the road plus a caution sign, I'd greatly appreciate it. And that's all I got. Thank you, everybody, for all you do. And I know some of it's good to see you because I don't get out much anymore. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Tyler Martin.
I don't really know if this is a public comment, but we were trying to get some land rezoned, and we had some concerns about if we were actually going to be able to afford to put in a subdivision road that was asphalt or concrete back to it, because we were doing 2-3 acre lots back there. We've been saving a long time to build our houses, and we didn't want to switch it over from agricultural to residential and then get stuck with it being residential if we weren't going to be able to maybe just stick a little bit of money and pour a little concrete near the Shaper Road Street. I just didn't know is there anybody that could tell us if that'll pass or not?
We can certainly get you in touch with community development who can give you those answers. If you will, just mention one of the secretaries, your name, and telephone number, and we'll have somebody from community development give you a call.
All right, thanks.
No, I was supposed to call you back. I did talk to you on the phone, but I was running gravel, and I had home trucks running, and I had to get that gravel out, but
No,
give me a
for sure.
call, and I'll figure out what you need to do.
All right.
I apologize, I
No,
did not call you back.
It's all right. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Jeff Simmons.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. We are here, I'm with Bax Engineering. We are here tonight for the rezoning of 307 Lorraine. It's at the intersection of Fire Lane Drive and Lorraine Drive. Currently, the property is owned by the city of O'Fallon. They used to have a water cistern on the site. That's been abandoned. They brought public water into the subdivision. So what we're requesting on behalf of Habitat for Humanity is to rezone it from, it's currently C2 to R1C, which would be the same as the adjacent properties. And so we're requesting that for a single-family home on the property. And I just want to let you know that we're here. I've got the Director of Habitat for Humanity of St. Charles County here as well with me, and we'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
It's Arnie Deanoff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Deanoff, Public Advocate and resident. First of all, I'd like to talk about is I'd like you to defeat tonight Bill number 4868. That deals with the airport. In my opinion, this is ripping off the federal government and us as taxpayers. Remember, we are taxpayers at the federal, state, and local level. Now, you want $69,000 from the COVID Relief Act to pay for parking lot improvements at our county airport that floods every other year. You want federal tax dollars from COVID to pay for vehicle acquisition reimbursement. You want to buy a vehicle at our county airport that floods every other year? Makes no sense. And you want to pay for utility cost reimbursement under the COVID-19 CARES Act. Again, this makes no sense. You are breaking federal law, and this is a ripoff for all of us taxpayers. It's a bad use of our taxpayer money, and I ask that you defeat this bill. The second issue, I made a simple request on July 27th to Steve Ellman, Joanne Lycum, Demetrius Chapman, the Director of Public Health, and John Grefshew, to meet with the presidents of the 8 teacher group associations about health questions and concerns that they have related to the education of our county students. Now, these 8 presidents either are presidents of the certified teacher staff or support teaching staff of Washington, Wentzville, St. Charles City, Francis Howell, Fort Zumwalt, and Orchard Farms. I provided and gave John Grefshew, after the meeting on the 27th, a page of their names and their email addresses as requested by Mr. Grefshew. What this tells, none of these 8 presidents have heard from the county executive or his director of administration, and I met with both of them previously to the meeting and asked them some questions. What this tells me is that Steve Ellman does not care about the 10,000 educated, certified, and school support staff of our school districts. They are related to families of over 200,000 county residents who are related to a school employee. and in our counties, for our county districts. None of the 8 have been contacted by Mr. Ellman or anyone on his staff. Fort Zumwalt School District met tonight about COVID and return to school at 6 p.m. It'll be interesting to see what efforts and what type of action was taken by the school board at tonight's meeting. Now, after that 27th meeting, on July 31st, Mr. Watson, I met with you before the meeting also. You're the county counselor. You're responsible for all of your attorneys. But I received a very threatening and very concerning letter from his associate county counselor, Drew Hefner, right after I testified before you as county council members. In State of Missouri and A.C. Dinoff versus Kurt M. Barr, case number 2011 CC 00649, Mr. Drew says, withdraw your claims immediately, where I'm contesting with the City of O'Fallon, the O'Fallon City Council, and the City Clerk, 6 illegal city charter amendments and a 2% use tax on residents.
Thank you, Mr. Dinoff.
This letter is very highly harassing, and I ask that Mr. Watson, the county council, look into this, and I look for an apology from Mr. Hefner and Mr. Watson. I'm going to stand strong, and I'm not going to put up with county government pushing back at me for testifying before my elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dinoff. Is anyone else?
No more speakers.
All right. With public comments being concluded, the next on the agenda is an oral report from the county executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go ahead and just update everybody on the statistics we've been going over at the last 2 council meetings. This is a update of the chart which we've been looking at, as you can see. And you may remember 2 weeks ago I suggested to you in a rather guarded fashion that we might be flattening the curve, but it was really much too soon to celebrate. But as you can see now, we have flattened the curve. Let me see. This also is something we've been looking at, and this shows the various age cohorts. And as you can see there in July, that was the month in which the 20 to 30-year-old cohort just went through the ceiling. We've only had 10 days to look at in August, but it looks like, based on those 10 days at least, we've sort of got that condition back under control. Now, again, I'm not suggesting we're satisfied or happy with what we've got. We'd like to see all those down to 0, but hopefully we're at least headed in the right direction. Again, this is the numbers that the media never really talks about. Again, you can see that for the longest time, St. Charles, Franklin, and Jefferson were in a different world than St. Louis City and County. And even after, as you know, we waited 18 days before we started to reopen back in May. And we had another 3 weeks in which our cases continued to go down after we had opened up. Once St. Louis City and County opened up, we started getting more cases, and as you can see there for a while, we were probably growing even faster than St. Louis City and County. But in the last month, we've been growing at about the same rate, which again it's not acceptable, but it's not unique in the region. And even we're seeing Franklin and Jefferson starting to grow a little bit as well. A month ago, we talked about the number of COVID deaths. It was really down at that point. In the first 90 days, as I told you, we've averaged 24 per month. In the last 30 days, we've had 22. Again, that's totally unacceptable, but it is an improvement over our average, and that's something that we look at first, the number of deaths. And again, even with those additional deaths, it's still 83.5% of the deaths are people in long-term care, nursing homes and hospitals. And so again, it's 81 people, most of them are in their 80s or older. Again, that's not acceptable. We'd like to get those numbers down to 0, but right now they're not out of line with other jurisdictions in the region. After deaths, the second thing we look at is the hospitalizations, because again, we don't want to get in a situation where the hospitals can't deal with the demand. And this is what everybody was afraid of back in March. And when we closed in March, you can see there was a tremendous decline. And that decline continued for almost 2 months before it started to go back up. Once again, it's too high, but it's in the last, what looks like 7-10 days, it's going down. And hopefully, when we look at this again in 2 weeks, that trend will continue. And I'm talking about the upper number there. That's the actual people in the hospitals. At the bottom, those are the people in intensive care. All right, and that's where, again, back in March, you can see how much higher those numbers were back in March. That's what people were afraid of. That's when they were talking about the ventilators and what might happen. Again, those numbers are higher than we'd like, but they're lower than they were 2 weeks ago. Here's the actual percentage. It shows you the number of cases in the last 14 days compared to the number of cases in the 14 days before that. And again, you can see we flattened the curve, and in fact, we're going in the right direction. We got a minus 24%. Again, it's more than we want. We need to keep working. I'm not... I know that people in county government have been doing everything that we can, including the contact tracing, which has become much more of a challenge. We're continuing to work hard on the contact tracing. We're continuing to educate people and tell them why we think masks are preferable. We've given away many masks. We gave away, Joanne, was it 30,000 last Friday in Lake St. Louis. We're going to give away another 30,000 at the Family Arena this week. So if you know people that want to wear a mask and don't have one and want free masks, we'll give them 10 freebies. So please send that message out. You also may remember about 2 weeks ago when things weren't looking as good. All the mayors in St. Charles, along with the presidents of the Board of Aldermen and myself, did a joint press conference asking people to voluntarily wear the mask and asking businesses to voluntarily require them. Once again, no mandate, but we think the way out of this is educating people, and we understand there'll be people who disagree with us on what we're saying. We're not going to force them to do anything, but we're going to try to convince them that wearing a mask is not just good for them, it's good for everybody else. So this is the total number of people on quarantine right now. But what's more amazing is the number of people who have been released from quarantine. So going back to March, this is how many people in St. Charles County, have done the right thing. And, they've done, I would say 99% of them have done it without complaining, and as far as we know, have been voluntarily compliant. And this is just another example. There is a state law. There's been one since before 1918, requiring people to quarantine if they have an infectious disease. But again, if you have a large number of people saying, I'm not going to quarantine. If you had a large number of people saying, I'm just not going to do that, we wouldn't have had enough sheriff deputies, our police officers, our public health people to do anything about that. We can't, we really can't police that. So quarantine is the first example, I would say, of something that we did a very good job on in this county. And we did it because 99% of our people understood, hey, if you got this virus, you need to stay home. You go to work, you're going to give it to somebody else. So The fact that they did that means I think we were successful. I think we just need to get to the point where they all understand the importance of the mask wearing, and not just the mask wearing. I mean, everybody's talking about masks now. I mean, it's the mask along with the social distancing and washing your hands and doing all those sorts of things. This is, again, this on the contact tracing, we know a lot more all the time about where people are potentially getting the infections. Again, it hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 2 weeks, but there are a couple of categories there you might want to take a look at. We certainly will be paying attention to it. The crisis in county government really hasn't gone away, all right? And again, we were spoiled. We were doing all the things that we think needed to be done. We don't think we changed things that much, but just as everybody else start coming down with the disease, we had people in county government. And we had 7 cases prior to 6/27, and we've had 50 cases since. We've had people do a tremendous job. We've had the people do more overtime than they really have wanted to do in order to make sure that we have everything covered. And there's some areas that are easier to cover than others. We've got some people that are pretty highly trained, and when they get sick, it creates a real problem. So we can enforce mask wearing on our employees, and we have instituted that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I think it's helped some. But again, we'll continue to follow this. The last thing here, and again, we showed you these maps, and this is from the New York Times, which I don't normally cite, to prove my point, but in this case, I will. And what you see here is they did this study, and they looked at all the various, I think they used zip codes or census tracts or whatever, but you can see they kind of gave everybody a grade, all right? And I will be the first to admit there's some areas in St. Charles County, this is like 2 or 3 weeks ago now, where not very many people, probably 35% out in the western part of the county, only 35% were wearing masks. But at the same token, in the city of St. Charles, 70% are wearing masks. In Weldon Springs and Darden Prairie and parts of Lake St. Louis, it was 66%, all right? Now, I just point that out because that's something people were doing voluntarily. If you go to St. Louis County, you've got some areas, mainly West County, where people, probably 80%, are wearing masks. But the city of St. Louis, in one zip code, it was 26%. In another, it was only 20%. There were areas in St. Louis County where it was 30%. My point is, and I think I'd like to see those numbers go up everywhere, but just because other jurisdictions mandate it doesn't mean that people did it. So that's one of the reasons why I am going to continue to rely upon educating people to do what our public health director says is the right thing to do based upon his years of study and experience and what other experts are telling us. And we'll continue to do that, and hopefully when we come back in 2 more weeks, I can report that trend line, which is going down right now, continues to go down a little further. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
I have a question, Terry.
Mr. Bassett.
Steve, as Mr. Cronin pointed out last meeting, that school boards we're not going to cross jurisdictions and other political entities as far as schools and so forth go. But what I do know is the CDC recommended that the kids all go back to school. I know that's a fact. And I also know it's a fact that there's not one proven case of a child or student giving a teacher the COVID virus. I know that's also a fact worldwide. Not just in St. Charles County, not just in Missouri, not just in the United States. Worldwide, there is not one proven statistic that shows that one child gave a teacher the virus. Now, if you guys can prove, if there's any actual information out there, I'd like to see it because I'm open for dialogue, but That's the facts. And so the CDC, as far as what I would say what the county's position is the CDC is, I guess that whether or not we want to follow everything they say, I'm not so sure, but that is one thing that we will follow, that the kids should go back to school. But then again, when the school boards are making these decisions, we have no control over that whatsoever. We can't jump into their electoral decision-making processes.
Yeah, well, as you know, under the Constitution, our charter can be directed at cities and water districts and levies, a whole lot of things, but not school boards. And I think that's probably a good thing. Let me just say that I have not heard from any of our local teachers union leaders, but I did get a call last week from Otto Fajan. And I've known Otto for 25, 30 years. For the last 20 years, he's been the lobbyist for the NEA in Jefferson City. And when I was in the legislature, we worked on educational issues together. He's a good guy. Listened to everything he had to say. He made some of the same arguments that some people have made here tonight. I basically listened to what he had to say and passed that on at a conference call to the superintendents in St. Charles County and invited them, if they had questions of him, I gave him his telephone number, told him they should contact him. But that's the information that I passed on from the lobbyist, the state lobbyist for the state NEA. And we gave the school districts that information at the same time that Dimitri was giving them all the information that you've seen here tonight, plus a whole lot more. And if you'll talk to those superintendents, I think you'll find that Dimitri's been very available. He has given them all the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all right? And again, we're in a situation here where medical experts may recommend things, but just as we've had to look at the bigger picture, these educators have a tough decision. And they're going to have to weigh, any medical risk against the, I think, equally significant risk of these kids being out of school another 2 or 3 months. And again, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. And everybody has their own opinion about education because we've all been part of it. We all have kids that have been a part of it. And I see Mr. Cronin's biting at the bit here to add something, so I'll shut up and let him do that.
Mr. Cronin.
Last meeting I alluded to, what we could and what we couldn't do, and I wanted to give you folks some really hard numbers, okay? Don't get me wrong, we're very sympathetic with Apply to Your Teachers. You guys are between a rock and a hard place. But this isn't the proper board to make these decisions. I mean, my youngest kid got out of school 10 years ago. I mean, I have no clue what's going on in local schools, but I do know the law pretty well. The county government gets their power from state government, okay? And each one of us has taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Missouri. And you can look this up, it's Article 3, Section 40, has clear limitations on passages of local and special laws. And it clearly states that we cannot pass any law to regulate a school district. So when you school boards are telling us, hey, well, the county should be making recommendations, they're passing the buck. They know their schools, they have their own health officials, they can get all the information they want from our county health officials, but they need to make those decisions. We are not legally able to do so, nor are we appropriate for us to do, because we don't know schools. The school boards are. So, that's what I want you to be clear of, that you realize. It's not that we don't feel sympathy for you folks, because you're in a tough situation. It's because if you read Article 3, Section 40, Item 24, it's clear as plain as day. So that's what I want to say. I don't know, ma'am, but I know that I took this oath and I'm going to abide by that oath, okay? And it's in here. So
That's enough. Okay, we've concluded the oral comments from the county executive, and next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll let these folks have a chance to All right, first up is bills for final passage, which is bill number 4868.
Bill number 4868, an ordinance authorizing execution of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission's Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act Agreement, project number 20-116A1, to provide CARES Act financial assistance under the state block grant program and to maintain safe and efficient airport operations, including the airport's operational and maintenance expenses or debt service payment and other expenses directly related to the airport incurred no earlier than January 20th, 2020, and to accept a grant not to exceed $69,000, which represents 100% of funding available for qualifying expenses, and amending Ordinance 19-108 for supplemental appropriations to the budget of the Coronavirus Relief Fund for airport improvements.
Any questions or comments on bill 4868?
I have a comment.
Yes, Mr. Hammond.
Just so everybody knows, the airport does not flood every other year. I only know of 2 occasions where the airport is flooded, and that one was in 1993 and the other was in 2008 when we had massive floods. So the airport does not flood every other year, as somebody had mentioned earlier, Mr. Dienhoff.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 4868, an ordinance authorizing execution of Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission's Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act Agreement, project number 20-116A1, to provide CARES Act financial assistance under the state block grant program and to maintain safe and efficient airport operations, including the airport's operational and maintenance expenses or debt service payment and other expenses directly related to the airport incurred no earlier than January 20th, 2020, and to accept a grant not to exceed $69,000, which represents 100% of funding available for qualifying expenses, and amending Ordinance 19-108 for supplemental appropriations to the budget of the Coronavirus Relief Fund for airport improvements. Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Councilman Brazel.
Yes.
Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
Okay, bill number 4868 passes. Next bill for final passage is bill number 4869.
Bill number 4869, an ordinance authorizing execution of the revised St. Charles County Regional SWAT Team Agreement with municipalities who are signatories thereto.
Questions or comments on this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 4869, an ordinance authorizing execution of the revised St. Charles County Regional SWAT Team Agreement with municipalities who are signatories thereto. Councilman Brazel.
Yes.
Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Okay, bill number 4869 passes. The last bill for final passage is bill number 4870.
Bill number 4870, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documents from the Missouri State Emergency Management Agency for receipt of funds from the fiscal year 2020 Emergency Management Performance Grant.
Okay, questions or comments on bill number 4870? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 4870, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute documents from the Missouri State Emergency Management Agency for receipt of funds from the fiscal year 2020 Emergency Management Performance Grant. Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Councilman Brazel.
Yes.
Okay, bill number 4870 passes. Next up is bills for introduction, starting with bill number 4871.
Bill number 4871, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance of the County of St. Charles, Missouri, approving the preliminary plat of villas at Lake St. Louis.
I'd like to make a motion to table this as per applicant's request. John and him are working on something.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling this bill say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this bill is tabled. Next up for introduction, bill number 4872.
Bill number 4872, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District per application RZ 20-08.
Questions or comments?
Are you Keith? What, you come up here real quick if you like and just give us a real quick rundown of what you were talking about.
Oh, that's all right.
Pretty much, the zoning board, I think, said, I talked to somebody from the zoning board that said we needed to submit a subdivision plat, which we did tonight, from our surveyor. We were just trying to take the 11 acres, divide it into 2 plots off the back of it to 3 acres each. There's already a gravel road easement that 2 other houses, or lots, I guess,
So this
use.
is your parents' property. You got 11 acres and they're giving you and your sister or something like that?
Yeah,
to go
family.
into 2 lots. It's a 3 acres each.
Yeah.
And so he called me, and this is something that I think Dave or me and Joe talked about. Is Mike here? Mike's not here?
No.
Okay, is there anybody, Robert here? No? Okay, so he's breaking it, breaking it 3 times, Joe, and I mean, he's breaking it twice. He's got the parents' property and then him and his sister. So I think there's some, I want to talk about this with Robert. Me and Joe have been working on some things. Now, this ain't 5 acres, it's 3 acres, but I thought it was 3 times, John. If you broke it more than 3 times, you didn't, well, he's breaking it twice. So I guess this is something we're gonna talk about, because I thought that when you did a family plot like that and you broke it twice, he didn't have to do a subdivision plot. Am I missing something?
I think it's better to get Robert and Mike involved on it.
Okay, because we were talking about that, Joe, that's exactly what we were talking about, those kind of things. So we'll talk, call me tomorrow.
I just wanted to finish.
Here's Mr. Hobart right here. He's,
And speaking of this,
Just,
I don't know about the devil.
That's all right, let me ask him a question, all right? Michael?
Yes, sir.
So, are you familiar with this situation a little bit?
Yes.
So, I just want to make sure I understand it. If it's, I thought in years past you could break your property up twice or 3 times without having to get a subdivision plot?
It's 2 lots. The previous zoning requirement, that was amended with our minor subdivision plat process. So now they would still have to go through the plat procedure for the lot split, is what they're proposing to
curbs and
do.
sewers and all that type of stuff?
Yes, for more than 2 lots, you have to do the subdivision, so.
So I guess what we're gonna do is, this is more complicated than to sit here and hammer this out right now. So I'm gonna call Mike, I'm gonna see how, I know where you're trying to go with this, and we gotta figure out if there's a different avenue or something, or at least try to find some reason, maybe get a variance or something, I don't know, but I'll talk to you about this and we'll try to figure it out.
All right, I appreciate it. Can we take, until we figure it out, so it doesn't get changed over if we're not gonna be able to do it or afford it, can we table it till next?
No, you don't need to table it
This is
just
the first
yet.
reading.
You got another reading, so we'll talk,
Figure
we
it
got
out
plenty
by
of time, we're not gonna do anything in haste.
In fact, it won't come up now for 3 weeks, because our next meeting's 3 weeks from tonight.
All right, thanks. All right, to call you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
All right. Next bill for introduction is Bill number 4873.
Bill number 4873, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Cronin. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from C2 General Commercial District to R1C Single Family Residential District per application RZ 20-09.
Would you like to come up and re-explain what you were mentioning in the public comment section about? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cronin.
I can just probably save you a little time. I know where this is at very well, because I used to be an alderman in St. Paul, I know the history within it and everything, I know exactly where the spot is. I've talked to Habitat for Humanity, I know what their plans are, I've read all of the planning and zoning. There was no opposition whatsoever, there's no controversy involved. I'm fully supportive of this getting approved. The only one person that had any comments had to do with the fees for the mid-district, and that's between the lot owner, Habitat, and the city of O'Fallon, because they control the sewer in that area. That's not our realm whatsoever, so for what it's worth, there's no controversy. It's a great thing that the Habitat Humanity does for this county. It's a great location on a half-acre lot. And the residents have not reached out to me in any manner at all, other than one person that wrote a letter to P&Z complaining about the mid-district fees. And or on sewer, and that's between you guys and the city of Fountain to work out, not us. So that's all I have to say. You help
Thank you,
come on up
Councilman.
if you got more to say.
No.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
Yep.
Next, any other comments on Bill number 4873? Okay, next up is Bill number 4874.
Bill number 4874, requested by Amanda Brower, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the city of St. Peters for use of St. Charles County transportation sales tax funds for road improvements needed to support the economic development project SMILE.
Questions or comments on Bill number 4874? Seeing none, we move on to Bill number 48. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I played pizza delivery boy at the
Yes.
city of St. Peters.
We appreciate that.
And the mayor is real excited about this and thinks there's more business coming in as a result of this project to our county. So it's a real good thing. I guess, John, you worked on this or whatever. It sounds like it's gonna work out to be a heck of a good deal for St. Peters and the county in general. So that's the only thing I got to say.
Thank you. All right, next is Bill number 4875.
Bill number 4875, requested by Amanda Brower, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance approving an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the Gateway Green Light Program, Federal Project CMAQ-5414633.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, Bill number 4876 is next up for introduction.
Bill number 4876, requested by Christine Ramsdell, sponsored by Nancy Schneider. An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental skywalk license agreement with the city of St. Charles.
Okay, questions or comments on this?
Yeah, I have,
Yes.
I have a comment. Before I even knew we'd gotten this far with this project, which I know we did discuss, but I started getting calls from constituents who were not happy with the skywalk going across the street there. They were complaining about how it looked. They were wondering why we couldn't put in a tunnel. I talked to John Greisfew, and he sent me a copy of what the skywalk is supposed to look like. I know that what we have in our agenda, the bill refers to exhibits B and C, one of which I think is some sort of a schematic, but those were not included with the packet. So I don't know if what we're looking at now is the same thing that John sent me a few weeks ago. But I don't know if there's anybody here that wants to talk about this. I see Mr. Dienhoff is there. I tried to explain to the couple of people that I spoke with why we could not put in a tunnel between two buildings that are not on the same level. In other words, the jail is a higher elevation than the courthouse. And that now that all of the infrastructure is in there, that's not feasible. I also explained to them that during the time the plans for the new courthouse, which is, 30 years old now, so it tells you how long ago this was, that we judges wanted there to be some sort of a tunnel or something under, or a skywalk, and at that time it was a county commission. It was before the charter, before the county executive. The county commission refused to consider it. So now we've had to deal for 30 years with the issues that's caused by when you want to transport people from the jail to the courthouse, which happens every day in larger and larger numbers. You have to send a sheriff over there, 2 sheriffs. They have to get the person down, take him down to the garage, put him in the car, drive him across the street, take him out of the car, take him up through an elevator, take him into the courtroom. And that's a huge problem. There were a lot of delays. Plus, with COVID now, there's a lot of problems with transmission, with people being in closed spaces like elevators and cars. And so I think that this needs to be done. I do think, though, that we should make sure that it's done as efficiently and as aesthetically pleasing as possible. I heard some people say, well, this is the historic district and it doesn't look historic, but when I looked at the schematic that John Graceview provided to me, it did look like it would fit in with the aesthetic of both the courthouse and with the jail, which have kind of a classic structure, but by no means do they look historic. So I just wanted to mention that, and I just want to make sure that we can see the final plans before we actually get started with the project. That was my only comment.
Being a history guy, there wasn't too many skywalks back in 1824 there.
There were tunnels, however.
Probably was. Any other comments? Okay. Next up for introduction is Bill number 4877.
Bill number 4877, requested by Kurt Friz, sponsored by Terry Hollander. An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute certain contracts with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the placement of a breath alcohol instrument purchased through the Alcohol Impaired Driving Countermeasure Grant Program with Missouri Safety Center.
Questions or comments on 4877? Okay. Seeing none, that concludes our bills for introduction. Next up is announcements, miscellaneous. Anyone have any announcements? Mr. County Executive.
Yeah, I guess I would have to congratulate Mr. Brazel and Mr. Hammond on their reelection, but I especially want to congratulate Judge Snyder on her election.
I had to do all the heavy lifting, didn't I?
I appreciate you agreeing to serve in the first place, and I particularly appreciate the very good effort and really great effort that you made to get reelected, so thank you very much.
Can I just say, the only thing worse than having to go around after an election and get all your signs back is having to do it after you lost.
I don't think you've ever done that, have you?
No, so far, so knock on wood.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Elam.
I understand that Fort Zumwalt had a special meeting tonight of their board, and somebody had asked earlier, I wonder what they discussed tonight. So Zumwalt's moving school start back to August 31st. So they've pushed school back a few more days. And speaking as someone who has a daughter who's going to be a senior this year, she is fine with school moving back. She just wants homecoming and prom this year because she lost it as a junior. So she's hoping she gets homecoming and prom this year. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping these numbers continue.
If those numbers keep going down, another week might be significant.
Hey, I'm saving money because we bought a dress when she was a junior, so as long as it fits, I'm good.
Mr. Brazel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you have choices, I guess people have choices, and today, me and my wife signed up our kid for charter school for the first time, and all of our kids, we signed up for charter school today because of the school district we go to, went to 2 days a week in Franklin County, and we just can't do it. I don't know how people can do it when you get parents working, and the numbers aren't even there in Franklin County. It's just so bizarre to me. So we signed up for Lutheran School on 94.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Cronin?
My 95-year-old mother-in-law, who's had 2 nasal tests positive, still shows no symptoms and is going strong at 95. My 28-year-old son, who's a marathon Ironman runner kind of guy, got it. It was sick as hell for 2 or 3 days, but now slowly recovering, okay? But I just like to remind people, I hate wearing what the governor calls the dang mask too, but you also got an option is the social distance. The CDC says that's more effective than a mask. And it's not that difficult, and it's not any type of impingement on your liberties to stay 6 foot away from other people. So that's what we've been doing in my business. So when I go shopping or even come here, I don't wear one now, but I'll wear one when I head out that door. So that's all. If we all do that, then maybe we won't have to worry about this 6 months from now.
Not to belabor this, but I've said this before. I have a daughter who's a 2nd grade teacher in the city of St. Charles, and they just made a big switch where before they were going to have some teachers teach remote for people who wanted to keep their kids at home, others to stay in the classroom, which my daughter wants to do. Now they've said that the teachers have to do both. They have to teach virtually at the same time they're teaching the kids in the classroom. They have to do all of this prep work and contact parents, take attendance, and not only that, but they also have to clean the classroom. So I think that's basically an impossible task. There's no way you're going to keep 2nd graders wearing a mask all day and keep them socially distanced. So I just hope the numbers don't go up when school starts. I pray they don't, but we're all going to do the best we can because that's what we have to do.
Steve or Joanne, I've had probably 5 people call me, and somebody said something about this, and I asked them to give us a written statement. I heard people go, and they try to go, it's usually an urgent care or care facility like that, where they want to go get the test for COVID, and they sign up the form, and they're sitting there, and they leave. And then 2 or 3 days later, they get a notice that they were tested positive, and they actually never did the test. I heard that 5 times from 5 different people, and I called them. I don't know who they are, but someone gave me their numbers, and I called them, will you make a statement of some kind so we can dig into it? And people are just afraid. I mean, they don't want to make comments. So I assume it's true. I don't know, but if they, without them telling us, giving us some facts, then we can't do any kind of investigative, you know.
If they could, you can either give my number and I'll get the information from them. We don't need their name necessarily after that. I mean, we might need it at some point down the road, but yeah, I mean, I've heard those stories secondhand too. I don't know a single person who says it happened to me, but I've heard them second and third hand, right? And so if we could get some information, that would be very helpful about who they believe is doing it. Because you have to know with all these tests out there that there are places that probably don't have the best testing protocols, but we haven't been able to get any information on where it's happening.
Right. Okay.
Do we have any regulatory authority over it?
No, but we can connect on the state.
Right.
Okay, I just want to mention, I've talked to Councilman Cronin and several other members. Our next meeting is not until 3 weeks from tonight, but on that night, we also have a public hearing on the capital program and strategic plan, and then we also have to vote on it that same night. So what we've discussed is the possibility of 2 weeks from tonight, having a work session on the capital program and the strategic plan. And if that is okay with you councilmen, we will go ahead and put it on the schedule.
Absolutely.
Okay?
7 o'clock.
Does that meet everybody's need, 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, Donna.
I think that would
let's
be
do that.
very helpful.
Yes.
That's fine. I think it's good, actually. But again, remember the strategic plan is more about a roadmap. Every individual thing still has to be approved at some point.
Right, yeah, okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, when's the public hearing on the tax levy?
That's not, September, last meeting in September, if I believe. Okay. All right.
Steve, are we getting any more traction on the levy district with board members and so forth? All right, the levy district, right? Yeah.
Levy.
Or not the levy.
Oh, the Port District?
Yeah, the Port District, yeah.
Got some people coming in this week
Okay.
to talk to.
All right.
It's kind of had to go on the back burner.
Now, I know, everybody's rhythm is off with this nonsense going on.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, motion is
Hey, Mike.
seconded and meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks. Donna mentioned that in your packet here, we have the capital program. You can take it with you.